Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that rewards skill at all levels, from deck building to gameplay. Many strive to reach the peak of what competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Has to offer, but don't know where to begin. In this series, I'll be going through the Yu-Gi-Oh! Journey, from the local level to higher tier events, until we get our top. This is Not Stopping Till We're Topping. After our strong start last episode, I figured I'd show off the basic combo before we head off to locals for more practice. We're going to start with just the one card, so just Neptubus by himself, 4 other cards in hand, and I'll go through the process. So to start, we'll normal summon Neptubus, and we'll activate the effect, sending for cost a copy of Shadow Squad. Assuming this resolves, we get Dragoons, and the new chain Shadow Squad will trigger to summon from the deck a Mermail Abyss Pike. Abyss Pike effect will activate to discard a water for cost, and then search a level 3 water. So here we're going to search the Abyss Shrine. New chain will trigger Dragoons to search a Sea Serpent. We'll search another copy of Neptubus. We'll activate Abyss Shrine, tributing the Neptubus in our hand to search a level 7 water. Because Neptubus was sent for a water effect, it'll activate to summon back an Atlantean, and we'll summon back Atlantean Dragoons. And then here, we'll overlay Dragoons and Abyss Pike into Bahamut Shark. Keep in mind this is the 4th summon. So we'll activate Bahamut Shark to detach Dragoons to summon out the Totally Awesome. Because we detach Dragoons to activate a water monster's effect, Dragoons will search here, and we'll search Moulin Glacier. I want to point out, we have 4 waters in our grave. If we had any other water in our hand, we can go Teus, discard the other water, and then summon Moulin Glacier to discard 2. But for now, I'm just showing you the 1-card combo, which we just searched the Moulin Glacier to have a discard for Teus. So we're going to discard Moulin Glacier to summon Abyssius, and Abyssius will search us Abyss Gund. We're then going to link Bahamut Shark and Neptubus off into Marincess Coral and Enemy, right up there. We're going to activate Coral and Enemy's effect to revive a water monster with 15 or less attack, summoning out Shadow Squad. We're then going to link Coral and Enemy and Abyssius into the Neptubus King. We're then going to activate Shadow Squad effect, discarding Mermail Abyss Gund, to make all waters I control level 7. So this will do 2 things on a new chain. One, it'll trigger the king to search a Mermail equip spell, or an Atlantean equip spell, because I sent the water to activate a water monster's effect. And then 2, it'll activate Mermail Abyss Gund when it's discarded to revive a Mermail. So we'll trigger them. We'll get Abyss Sting Triana, and Abyss Gund will trigger to revive Mermail Abyss Pike. We're going to activate Abyss Sting and then use its effect to revive a Atlantean or Mermail in our grave or in our hand. We're going to summon out Dragoons. Now what we can do is we can overlay these 2 into either Bahamut or Dweller, depending on the matchup. For usually going first blind, I like to make Bahamut. So we'll make another Bahamut. We'll activate Bahamut effect, detaching Dragoons again to summon another Toad. Sorry. And keep in mind, we're putting our Toads under the arrows of the Mermail Abyss King, so that way they can't be targeted. Then, because we detached Dragoons for Bahamut, we'll get another search, and we'll search for Heavy Infantry. So with this as our end board, what this does is we have 2 Toad Negates, which is pretty good. And then whenever we use a Toad Negate, so like our first thing we use a Toad Negate, we'll get King Neptubus effect because a water was sent to activate a water monster's effect, and we'll get Toad effect to add back. So a couple things, you can do some interesting things where, let's say you opened infantry, you can discard it pretty freely and then just add it back off Toad when you use the first Toad. And then we can equip from deck a copy of Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi to the Atlantean King Neptubus. So this also puts another disruption for us. But let's say we know our opponent has Dark Ruler because we looked at their hand. What we can do is, instead of waiting for the Toad, During our opponent's standby phase, we can activate the grave effect of Mermail Abyss Shrine, the Atlantean Shrine. We'll banish her to discard a card. It could be any card, so we can hold on to the infantry if we want. So we discard a card, draw a card, and then because we sent the water, we will trigger this to equip the Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi from deck. So this way, we not only have the double toad, but we have the spell negate, and we can still hold the heavy infantry in our hand. One more thing, we have these 2 free bodies that we can do something with. We can link them off into a couple things. Either Mermail Abyss Lacia, to have another way to discard the heavy infantry from our hand, and another way to get value when she gets destroyed. Or an area to get also value when she gets destroyed. So it's pretty flexible. All right, we made it to locals. We're gonna hop inside. Probably gonna get a box of Rage of the Abyss, and we'll start getting ready to get started. All right, see you guys in there. So we lose the die roll into this match. We're playing against Ritual Beasts. I'm not too worried. I have a pretty general sense of what they do, and we play a lot of good hand traps into them. So we draw a hand. It's Rhine, Nibiru, Double Ash, and a Dominus Impulse. So it's a little awkward here because we can't use the Impulse before the Nibiru. And if you use Nibiru, you can't use Impulse that turn. So we're going to have to wait until we get to use Nib first and hold Impulse for next turn. So we basically have 2 hand traps, Nibiru and Ash. At this point, I've picked up my 3rd Impulse. So we are playing 3 Impulse. And I've cut Nibiru down to 1. So we're going to speed through this combo here. Pretty standard Ritual Beast stuff. A lot of looping of the names and looping of Kanahawk. Everything you come to expect. And we're really waiting to see where we want a Nibiru. Do keep in mind that he hasn't used Lara yet. He's decided to hold it from the initial Kanahawk banish. And when I asked him about it later, it was mainly just to have his follow-up later. So at this point, we're going to Nibiru him. I'm afraid of extra link material. And he's going to go for the Nochi Drago. This card is crazy. Miracle Fusion just from the extra deck. He'll trigger Lara, and I'll ash that. And thankfully, his end board is not that scary. It's just a Nibiru token and a big vanilla, basically. But he's going to go ahead and pass his turn here with 1 set. And our hand is not looking too hot. Remember, we still have Ash, Rhine, Impulse. We really need to top deck something crazy here. Nephthybis, Dragoons, something like that. So we draw for turn, and we draw Diva. Thankfully, no Imperm. If there was an Imperm there, it would have been kind of rough. We summon Nephthybis from deck. Pretty standard open. So with the Nephthybis we're resolving, we're able to continue the combo, the standard combo with the Shadow Squad and Dragoons. And then we'll be summoning out the Mermail Abyss Pike. Since we already have Abyss Rhine in hand, I don't really want to get another copy. So we get Minstrel for some added security. Check if there's Nibiru in the hand. And we find Inheritance and Protos. The banish from hand here doesn't super matter because there's no hand trap. And we're probably going to end up discarding the other one anyway. So for now, we just discard the Inheritance to discard the Protos with Mooling Glacier later. We overlay Bahamut. He makes Sulu Hat Trick here to imperm the Bahamut. But there's actually something really interesting we could do here, and it's still activate Bahamut. Bahamut is negated, unfortunately, but we can still activate it. We detach Dragoons for cost, and because Dragoons was sent for cost to activate a water effect, we're able to search another Sea Serpent. So we link 2 of them off into Coralline Enemy and revive a guy. So at this point, we have 5 waters in the grave. Special Mooling Glacier, we rip the other card in his hand, which was the Protos. And here we have pretty free reign. We're able to link here to Mermail King Nephthybis. And then we're able to Shadow Squad, pitch that Abyss Rhine from earlier, make Shadow Squad and Mooling Glacier into level 7, and trigger the Mermail King. We're going to search Triana, and then we're going to overlay our 2 level 7s into Abyss Gaios, and then overlay that into Poseidra, and bounce the board by detaching 2 and sending from deck. And this is enough to make our opponent concede. So moving on to game 2, he's going to start, and we open, interesting. We open Duster, Lightning Storm, 1-for-1, Infantry, and Dragoons. But our opponent starts off with a Dimension Shifter. It's really rough for us because even though we have powerful breakers in Duster and Lightning Storm, even if we clear the board, we're not really able to combo. 1-for-1 doesn't do much. And then even if we clear the board of monsters, which is really tough into Ritual Beast because they can contact fuse their monsters into defense, he can just banish, summon Nochi Drago, and summon out Lara. Shifter is a real problem, especially when there's no response window for you when they're going first and they shotgun it. So it's something we definitely need to work on and finding an answer in the deck, and it's something we'll look forward to working on in the future. So we'll fast forward this combo here a little. So he ends on Retiari, Colossus, Silhouette setting, Silhouette Trick, sorry, SP, and Steeds. So we Duster, we clear pretty much all the back row. Hat Trick still lives, which is a little annoying since it can't be destroyed by battle. And then from here, we're going to activate Lightning Storm. We picked up off the top a Dominus Impulse, which doesn't really help anything here. It maybe provides an interrupt under Shifter. But we Lightning Storm. He SPs to banish and move stuff out the way. But we still can't clear the board or kill, so we scoop it up after a bit and go next game. So moving on to game 3. We drew Called By for the Shifter. Fantastic. We had Diva, Minstrel, and Rhine. So we start with Minstrel to see if there's an Imperm or something. And he changed Dogwood. So we have a bit of a decision here. I think at this point there's only about 10 minutes on the clock. So I have to play either fast into the Dogwood or not at all. So we normal the Diva. We summon Neptibus. Give him 800. Sending Shadow Squad and Searching Dragoons. Summoning Pike. And then we both get the Rhine to our hand and the Moon Glacia. We continue with the standard combo. We summon Moon Glacia, bringing the 2 Ritual Beast cards we know are in his hand. And we're always keeping an eye on his life points. We're giving him a lot of life points here and the time. So we think for a bit, and we decide to go for the Bahamut Toad, as it puts an interruption on our board. We know he's getting the Dark Ruler back and drawing for turn. We still go for the Coralline Enemy and Mermail King to get the Abyss Scale to negate Dark Ruler. And at the end of the combo, we leave him with 2,500 life points. This is definitely something we're going to have to get rid of quick on the crackback so that we don't lose in time. But the end board's pretty strong. We have the Abyss Scale to negate the Dark Ruler, Toad to negate the top deck, and then when Toad negates the top deck, we can add back the Infantry to banish with Rhine and pop another card. He starts with normal when activating the effect, so we're going to Toad that immediately, set the when, and then get back the Infantry. He banishes 2 for Nochi Drago. He gets Lara effect, and I Ash it. And I know from there he only has Dark Ruler, so he goes activate Dark Ruler, negate it with the Scale, battle over the Wen. And then during his end phase, we banish Abyss Rhine, pop Infantry, really just push forward for the game. So even through Dogwood, we were able to get that. So that was round 2. In round 1, we played against Dark World, where Rough Brick in game 1 was able to be circumvented by our opponent also kind of having a Rough Brick. And then game 2, he went first, but we had the Droll, so that sealed that one up. Round 3, we played against Tenpai. Game 1, we lost to Shifter pretty fast. And then game 2, I made a slight misplay into multiple hand traps, so that one went to Tenpai. Round 4, we played against Centurion with Fenrir's and Bestials. And I'm relatively happy when I see Bestials because not a single card in our deck can be hit by a Bestial. So it's always free to know that our opponent has cards that just don't do anything at the start of the game. However, Fenrir puts in a lot of work, especially when you're starting with Diva, because they just get to banish the Neptibus right away. So that won them game 1, and then game 2, we just kind of had an unfortunate hand. And then round 5, we played against Voiceless Voice, and again, our hands were just not with us. So, wasn't the greatest this locals, but what was really interesting was the ratios. I saw a lot of 1-0s that I didn't like seeing, and I'm really interested in revisiting the ratios in the deck build to see where we can fine tune it, where we can add some more consistency. So that'll definitely be our next step. Before we end the episode, there is some pretty good news. At the start of locals, we were able to pick up 3 Dominus Impulse, and by the end of it, we were able to pick up 3 Molcharmy Fualos. This gets us all the cards we were looking to play in the initial build, and lets us start actually testing how we want to bring the deck to the new format. Speaking of the new format, we're going to have our first regional next week, so we'll see if we're able to get our top there. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.